The balance, explaining the balance of power. I hope you can hear me well. We are recording, so we are good to go. Now, it's important for us to first explain why you as a procurement practitioner need to have power in commercial negotiations, okay? Because without it, it is going to be difficult for you to get to your desired outcome of what you desire from a commercial negotiation. Now, power is the ability to exercise influence over others. The judicious use of power is essential in negotiations in order for us to firstly secure a win outcome for you, and then also maximize one's own party's share of value gains from the others' win-win cooperative agreement. Move the negotiation process forward. Without power, you can get stuck. Also push through negotiation barriers, secure agreement, commitment, and buy-in to positions or solutions in addition to mere compliance. So those are the reasons why you need power. You've got various forms of buyer-supplier kind of power relationships. One that you can use is overt. Now, overt power is the transparent power through leverage, hard negotiation, where you have got logical persuasion. You just appear and you overwhelm this individual or the other party with the kind of knowledge or stance that you have. The other one is called covert power. This one is subtle and it's hidden, and it's usually through information that you have. You may not be so obvious. The bullies use overt power, okay? They will come in and try to make hard demands, hard negotiations. But there are those that have covert power, which is a subtle type of power, and it is hidden normally, only revealed when necessary, and you can use it by excluding someone from the negotiation tactically. Then you got structural power, which is built in the situation, normally in the structure of the organization or the relationships that you have. If and here again, ladies and gentlemen, when you can give somebody power over you by automatically subordinating yourself to them, okay? And be very careful in the way that the world views us as Africans. They view us as people who respect the aged, the older people. So what they will do is they will send an older person to the negotiation, and as soon as you see that older person, you start addressing them as something. They have already got some level of power over you when you start approaching them like that. So what is the best way to deal with that tactic when they send an older person in the negotiation to try and adopt you to and exert structural power over you? How do you respond?
Professionally.
Yeah, professional. And how is that professionally done,
Focus.
I mean, you have a mandate, and the clear thing is that you're just doing your job. There is obviously you have to be respectful in how you discuss the negotiations, irrespective of what the age is. So I don't look at it as a colleague and a supplier from an age point of view. It's a professional relationship. That's what it is.
And the way you demonstrate that is,
just to add on that, you focus on the interest and not the position or the age, if I may say.
George, you want to say something as well?
Yes, I wanted to say you separate people from. It goes back to your second question, so your test.
It's not personal.
Just hold on, we've got an intruder outside. He's drawing my attention. I'll be with you in a moment.
How do you best say it?
it's not personal.
Yes.
So when you start
separate.
putting age and stuff like that, it becomes a personal thing.
Yeah, it goes to the first.
The relationship is the business is a relationship bound, not it's business bound, not we're not looking at demographics and things like that.
It goes back to 2 of the 4 principles. Separate people from problems, or you focus on interest, not the position.
Yes.
Sorry about that, colleagues. It has never happened like that when you find somebody coming and trying to look around for what they can pick up. These are the same boys who start now stealing from cars. Anyway, we are back. Yeah, so let's carry on. What did you say, George was saying? Everybody was saying that treat them professionally. Here is a practical way I personally have used. I address them by their first name. That's it. So that's one of the things. Now, let's look at the sources of power, of personal power in negotiations. The first one which you have as a source of power is legitimate power, okay? Now, legitimate power is the ability to exert influence, which is based on others' belief in the legitimacy of your authority. And when you are in procurement, you need to have legitimate power. And how do you demonstrate that? You demonstrate it by your title, your job title. There are some of you who are so humble that you don't carry your business cards and you don't even put your MCIPS titles on your name card. You've got big qualifications, but you don't put them there. When you are negotiating with suppliers, you must have that business card with your MBA and your MCIPS in front of your name and your doctorate, Dr. George Meche. It's important because that will give you legitimacy. And the moment people see, oh, this one is a doctor, or they've got this, they've got that. If you don't have, of course, you won't have anything to show for it. But I know that most of you have got some level of qualification. And once you get this MCIPS, be free to put it in front of your name whenever you sign documents. Expert power. This is power that comes recognized and valued by others. You are an expert. It comes by the level of knowledge and training that you've got. Reward power, you control resources. Referent power is charisma, and usually this is a kind of power that, you know, the people talk about aura. Are you still with me, guys?
Yes, we are.
Yes, Charles. Yes,
all right.
Yes, we are.
Then cohesive power. You can use this power. This is where you make threats to sanction or to walk out of a negotiation or to, it is called cohesive power. Then you've got information power. This is power to control information. And a lot of people without qualifications, they have gained experience over the years. They've got this information power. They will not share with you. You are a youngster coming with all your degrees, and this old guy has been there. He learned his work through experience over the years. Normally, they have this power that they exert, and they try and hide information as much as possible. Let's compare the relative power of purchasers and suppliers. Balance of power can be described as a distribution of the capability or power to influence or bargain between parties in a negotiation. So if you have the distribution of this power weighing more on the one side, the side on which the power is weighing more on has got the bigger balance of power. Okay, so remember this. The balance of power is the distribution of power or capability to influence or to bargain between the parties. Who has got more capability to influence? They have got a bigger balance of power. One party has all the bargain. When one party has all the bargaining power in negotiations, they become bullish. And once the negotiation becomes one-sided, you need to understand, how do you get the balance of power to come over to your side? Number one, you need to have realistically negotiate whatever you are negotiating. You need to be realistic. You must have a BATNA. You need to be ambitious enough regarding your objectives and very assertive. You need to adopt tactics that are available to you for you to use. Okay, and we'll talk about those tactics a little bit later. They are very useful. Some of them can be used negatively, but most of them you can use them positively in negotiation. You must analyze and understand the supply market dynamics and the key supplier characteristics of those you are negotiating with from the macro, micro, and the one-to-one supply engagements. All I'm saying to you guys is do your homework about the supplier, and then it will help you it will move the balance of power towards your side. So from this understanding, you can then establish where the balance of power may lie at a given point. Okay, without a BATNA, guys, you don't have power. Understanding the wider forces that influence the balance of power will help you in the negotiation. So you need to identify the sources of power in the wider business environment. You know, the steeple analysis, where you look at the social culture that the organization is, and all that is for the purpose of understanding power in these three levels: the macro, micro, and the one-to-one relations. Analyze the technological advantages that the supplier has. If their technology is inferior, you know that you can shift the power dynamics on your side. The economic environment in which they are operating, this is the macro environment. The political environment which they have the legal and the ethical issues. At level 2, you need to understand the micro, which is the industry structure in which they are operating. So first understand macro, then micro, and then finally the one-to-one type of relationships. In the micro environment, you are looking at the forces that affect the company, the supplier, the individual player in the particular industry. You need to understand the amount of rivalry that they have, what bargaining power of the customers that they have, the bargaining power of the supplier that he has, what substitutes are available, and the threats of new entrants. When you do these Porter's 5 forces, ladies and gentlemen, it helps you. When you do a negotiation strategy, every negotiation strategy must include Porter's 5 forces. Then lastly, the one-to-one buyer dynamics. You have to understand the power that is derived from the relative bargaining positions of your organization and the organization of the other supplier or of the supplier. You need to classify the suppliers into one of 4 quadrants of supplier classification. The classification can, and that is in the Krelchik matrix, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, keep that at the back of your mind, because that will help you. If they are strategic, leverage, bottleneck, or non-critical type of supplier, then your approach to negotiations becomes different, and then you know what kind of power dynamics you can exert on that particular supplier. How suppliers gain information on purchases. Suppliers also gather information which you should know about, of course, from public available sources on the internet. Other sources include subscriptions, magazines, annual financial accounts, customer tendering activities, and so on. So suppliers will also do their homework and they will gather information about you. How purchasers can improve leverage with suppliers. So we'll dive into how you can improve your power so that you have more bargaining power. The balance of power is on your side. So other than doing proper analysis, you understand the macro environment which the supplier is operating in, the micro environment which affects the industry, and the one-to-one relationship which is determined by the Krelchik matrix. Then you look into areas where you can improve leverage. Number one, your spend as a customer. Look at the spend, that the money that you're spending with the supplier. Okay, some suppliers can be arrogant if you're not spending a lot more money with them. If you are not a major supplier, spend concentration or consolidation across smaller number of preferred suppliers can help you increase leverage. So what you do is you optimize the number of suppliers. You have a smaller number of suppliers and then increase your spend to those small suppliers. Then you get more leverage, because the more you spend with a supplier, the more power you have to influence during negotiation. Use analytics to find out who, where, what of spend. Projecting organizations as attractive customers. The first port of call is to review our organization spend in that category. So we are looking at how do we increase leverage through spend concentration. As a procurement practitioner, understand how much you are spending in a particular category, okay? If you are buying services, like say for security services across the organization, understand if you cover the whole country, know how much you are spending in that particular category. If that spend is spread across many suppliers, then there may be an opportunity to increase spend with a smaller group. Your analysis may suggest shifting some spend away from some suppliers towards others. How do you determine that? You put in some performance matrices. So for example, you have a service level agreement with different suppliers, and depending on how they meet those service level agreements, you shift spend towards other suppliers. All right. This happens when you have framework agreements. So on framework agreements, you will have multiple suppliers from which you are getting multiple items. But depending on how they meet the service level performance, you decide to shift business away from them to other suppliers. So supplier spend consolidation can take many forms as outlined in the comments on the next slide. Number one, how do you increase spend? Firstly, vendor-based reduction. This is a reduction of the number of suppliers in any category. You can do volume pooling, where you consolidate to attract bidders' discounts. You put all these volumes together. And then volume redistribution. This is the one I was talking about, where you make recommendations following spend analysis to move spend from one supplier to another, depending on their meeting specific key performance indicators. Volume consolidation across categories. Now, this one is when you consolidate across different categories, you are using common requirements across a number of categories. And you know, there are certain organizations that do not categorize the items correctly. All right. The one that I'm thinking of is they would categorize, say, garden services away from cleaning services. Okay, so you have a category called garden services and another one called cleaning services. But you know that most of the time, the suppliers who do garden services, some of them also specialize in cleaning services. So what this one is saying, consolidate across categories. So get garden services combined with cleaning services, you get a bigger chunk. And then you look for a supplier that does cleaning services, including garden services, meaning the ones who clean outside and those who the others who clean inside. So you can look at all those types of opportunities where there are similarities between categories, do a consolidation on those common requirements and go out on one procurement transactions. That will give you some kind of leverage. All right, then the next one is standardization and harmonization of specifications. Now, those of you who are in technical procurement, like technical procurement buyers, when you do a spec, ensure that your specification is consistent across different business units. You don't want to have one business unit buying items, the same item but different spec. One business unit is buying HP laptop, the other one is buying Lenovo laptops, the other one is buying Apple laptops. When you do specification, you specify once, then it becomes easier. You automatically increase your volumes and you get better leverage. Then forming purchasing consortia. This is one item you can make use of when you've got various subsidiaries in the organization. All right, you can have these buying consortiums or consortiums is not correct. It's consortia, which is a plural. Okay, another way of increasing leverage through analytics using spend analysis. Now, in order to identify opportunities where you can increase your leverage with suppliers, you need to understand your spend. A lot of buyers do not understand how much they spend with which organization. Every procurement practitioner needs to have the top 10 suppliers with whom they spend 80%. In fact, maybe let me say the top 20 suppliers with whom they spend 80% of their turnover with, or their contract values with. You have to have that. The key questions you want to answer in this analysis is how much are you spending on which category or commodity? Who is your organization? Who in your organization is spending the money? Which cost centers? And who are you spending this money with? So you have the top 20 spend and which items. And in today's world, you'll find that there are a lot of companies in South Africa that are buying out other companies, and they are, you find that when you do your top 20, it consists of subsidiaries of the same companies. Like, the Bidvest Group is a big organization, and it's swallowing a lot of small companies. Yeah. Increasing spend using spend analytics. When you have access to this data, also known as a spend cube, okay? The spend cube is measured in 3 dimensions. That's why it's called a cube. It looks at where we procure from, what we procure, and who we procure for, which cost center. You can identify potential opportunities that can then be presented in a compelling graphics to stakeholders as a spend cube, like the one that you see in front of you. Increasing purchases leverage through other means. So we've dealt with other means of spend analytics, volume bundling, and so on. Now here, the last one I want to talk to you about is being an attractive customer. All right, being an attractive customer. Where there are few suppliers to a market, or in a market where suppliers hold the balance of power, a buyer may decide to project itself as an attractive customer. So there are certain entities today that have got oversubscribed number of buyers. Okay, their products are on high demand. So how do you as a buyer want to source products from those organizations? It is by being an attractive customer to the buyer. So here are some of the ways that would differentiate the buyer from other buying organizations. You need to have simple procurement processes, simple contracting processes, clear and concise documentation. Some of your companies, if you have to submit a bid, it's like you are submitting a thesis for your PhD, because the volume of documents that they want is onerous. You need to make it simpler for suppliers to complete those. Another one is absence of onerous supplier terms and conditions. On-time payment is very important. When a service provider is providing a service, you need to pay them on time. Transparent processes and ethical behavior. Don't tell me. I remember there was a tender that somebody told me about in one of the government departments in Mpumalanga. They went there to submit a tender, and they were called into the procurement manager's office, and the procurement manager says to them, please increase this value by 800,000 rand. Meanwhile, the contract was about maybe 400,000 rand. Add another 800,000 rand, and we will tell you where to put that money once it's paid to you. That is unacceptable. Such kind of individuals, you want to run away from them. You want to keep yourself away. So the buyers need to be ethical. You have to be an ethical buyer. You cannot be accepting bribes and kickbacks and things like that as a procurement practitioner. It is totally unacceptable. In a market with a more equal balance of power, a supplier may still seek benefits that go beyond payment, such as guarantee of exclusivity or preferential treatment. There is a buying model, what you call buyer's attractiveness model, that has been developed, and it looks at the matrix produces 4 quadrants where customers are classified as follows. One is develop, which means that you low spend but high attractiveness. Me as a buyer may be having very small business with them, but there is potential for me to grow. Then you have core, where you have high spend and high attractiveness, and then you've got some nuisance buyers who are low spend and low attractiveness. And then exploit, those who are high spend but low attractiveness. These are overarching suppliers where you will try and increase your opportunities with them. This is please memorize this. And like I said to you guys earlier, this is a multiple choice. So questions of this nature, they may ask you about what type of supplier attractiveness position they can ask you anything. They can ask you about the core or the nuisance or whatever. You need to be able to understand what that is. So as a supplier, this is the guiding principle. The vertical one talks about attractiveness, and the attractiveness factors include things like a reputation for innovation, prompt payment to suppliers, and all this is talking about the buying organization. This is how suppliers view you as a buyer. Okay, you can either be attractive. If your attractiveness is high and they spend a lot of money with you, it means you are a core customer. Okay, so the supplying organization they'll bend backwards. But most of the guys, they spend little and they're not even attractive. Those are regarded as nuisance. You might go there trying to ask for a a price reduction and they'll go tell you to go and take a hike. So examples of general factors, non-spend value that can make a customer attractive to a supplier are listed in the figure that we've just talked about. And attractive buyers may not be aware that they are perceived as such by the supplier and may pay a premium price for their unattractiveness. So guys, do your best. You are all buyers. Do your best to be attractive to your suppliers. Engaging the services of a third party to benchmark your relationship, especially those suppliers that are very critical to you. Do your best to be an attractive buyer. Okay. Being perceived as attractive buyer is always helpful in the markets where supplier power is dominant and so on. So that is the power balance that we needed to talk about. Do you have any questions before I introduce the next topic? The next topic is, please don't leave because we are not done yet. You can see some people are leaving already. It's a pity because the next topic is connected to what we are talking about. And this is about the types of relationships that impact on commercial negotiations. Now, we've talked about the power that you can have, the power balance between the buying organization and the supplying organization. So now we're going to talk about the types of relationships that impact on commercial negotiations. The relationship spectrum gives an idea of the various types of relationships that can exist between the buying organization and the supplying organization. Now, most appropriate relationship type for a given procurement situation may depend on factors such as the nature and importance of the item being purchased, the competence, capability, cooperation and performance of the supplier, then the geographical distance, the compatibility of the supply partners, the organizations and purchasing functions, objectives and priorities, and the supply market conditions. All these will influence the kind of relationship that you are going to have with the supplier. Now, this is the famous relationship spectrum that you have. Now, depending on the nature of the transaction that you are dealing with, you can have anything from competitive right to collaborative type of relationship. And this one on the left indicates a distant type of relationship. The more competitive a relationship is, the more distant the relationship will be. And the more collaborative a relationship, the closer the relationship will be with the supplier. Okay, so the distant type of relationship where you do spot buying, they are characterized by adversarial type of relationship. Okay, arm's length, transactional. But when you come to collaborative, where, and remember the Krelchik matrix, always in the top right, you have the strategic type of suppliers. You are either going to have a co-destiny, partnership, strategic alliance, and so on. The ones that are in the middle, you might have call-off types of contracts, and these are usually, say, leverage type of suppliers where you know that there's so many of them out there, and you continue to operate, to relate with them on the basis of a call-off type of agreement. And I've put the Krelchik matrix here just to show you the kind of relationships that you will need to have with the type of with the supplier, depending on which quadrant they fall into. So the non-critical items or routine items, you're going to have an arm's length approach towards them. Bottlenecks, you will negotiate medium-term or long-term contracts with these types of suppliers. Leverage, you're going to have hard or distributive negotiation, okay, because you've got many of them. The strategic ones these are the ones you have strategic alliances, you've got partnerships and so on. So you can have a choice of what kind of relationship that you will have. Now, the more strategic the relationship is, in fact, the less number of suppliers that you are going to have. All right. So suppliers will be segmented. This one, the picture on the left shows that the high level segmentation, most of your suppliers are going to fall into the high level segmentation where you have many of them. All right. The number of suppliers becomes higher. On the right side, the picture shows that the more complex the transaction is to implement, the lesser the number of suppliers that you're going to have. So you are going to have a more strategic suppliers with a less number of suppliers, and you are going to have multiple number of suppliers with suppliers where there is less activities that are happening with them. Okay, there will be more suppliers in the top range and less suppliers in the bottom range. Okay. The next one talks about building relationship based on reputation with the supplier. Now, reputation is defined as the belief of opinions that are generally held about someone or something. Okay. It is important for you to have a good reputation. And remember that a reputation can be based on beliefs and not necessarily the actual things. So people can believe things about you that may not even be correct. But the way that you portray yourself, from a procurement perspective, reputation strength in a supplier might be based on their quality of product, low cost, reliability, cutting edge technology, and so on. So as a buyer, you should be aware of local and international brands with positive or negative reputations with regards to the above. So reputation is also a perception, and it has many facets. So see this relevant example that is in your books. Building commercial relationship based on reputation. So buyers should retain a professional skepticism when it comes to relying on supplier reputations. You should have first-hand experience of the product themselves and not just what you have heard. Suppliers can buy reputation through, suppliers will buy reputation through various events. For example, sponsoring Orlando Pirates, or you think because they sponsor Orlando Pirates, they are good. Suppliers are buying reputation, and big guys are good at hiding their poor performance by flashing money with companies. They will sponsor Tico Modise or one of the top players. I don't know if Tico is still a top player. Is he still, George?
What did I do?
I'm testing if you are listening. I'm checking if you know whether Tico Modise is still a top player in South African football.
Is it?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Yeah, anyway, I'm just saying to you guys that when you contract, you should not contract based on what you hear the reputation of suppliers is out in the market. All right. So reputation lags with actual performance and may have been established in areas not beneficial to you as a buyer. So you hear about this supplier, they've got a great reputation about this. Go and find out, because what you are buying is not their reputation. You are buying a product. Okay. Buyers must have time to evaluate a supplier beyond their reputation to technical capabilities. Ronald Reagan once said, trust only happens by verifying. Okay? Colleagues, are you with me? I'm doing a time check to make sure that everybody is still with me. Whose voice haven't I heard here? Joyce, did you say anything today, Joyce?
No, not yet.
You're just listening. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Let me mention to you about how to trust a supplier. There are three types of trust in a commercial relationship. The first one is contractual trust. Okay, this you trust because you have a contract, and it's the weakest source of trust. Every kind of relationship should not be based on the fact that you have a contract. Then you trust them. If it is like that, it is the weakest form. Then there is competency trust. It is based on the professional qualifications. So you trust somebody because they've got good qualification. This also is weak trust. Ladies and gentlemen, the best form of trust is the trust where the other person has your interest at heart. It's called goodwill trust. And this is the strongest type of trust that you can ever have. Now, relationships characterized by all three components are the most durable. While we are saying, now remember we're talking about procurement. If we're talking about relationships, if it is relationship counseling, then I'll say to you, goodwill trust is the best. You don't have to say no because I've got a contract or with this person, then I'll trust them. We're talking about procurement. In procurement, you must have all. You must have contractual competency and goodwill trust. Contractual trust always exists. We are interested in building competence and goodwill trust. These two are the ones that are going to hold the relationship going forward. What are some of the signs of trust in business relationship? Mutually agreed and managed objectives. You agree on goals that you're going to do and you manage them mutually. Okay? You don't agree one thing and you do another, then trust is eroded immediately. Sharing information. When you know something, share something. If a supplier knows information about something to help you perform better and they're not sharing, then they do not trust you, or you do not, your trust is questionable. Manage conflict through joint problem solving, sit together to resolve issues. Here, guys, is free advice I'm giving you. In your contracts, okay, you need to put a clause in your contracts that all disputes will be resolved by mutual engagement between the two parties. Okay, any one of the parties who chooses to go to the lawyers or to court to try and resolve an issue, they will be liable for their own legal fees. Are we together, colleagues?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Charles, yes.
Keep it in mind. You will come and thank me later after 2 years. So review those contracts. And review them. Review the clause that talks about conflict management in the contract. And if that conflict, if there's nothing like that, go ask your lawyers who developed those contracts and tell them that conflict resolution has to be based on mutual agreement between the two, and make it positive there. Okay, because if you don't put it, the law normally says that the defaulting party will pay the legal fees of the other. But if you put it in the contract and you say, we will resolve these issues mutually and we will go through arbitration and so on, because there are those options for conflict resolutions, and suppliers are quick to run to the court. They take you to the court where you pay 50,000 rand just to consult with an advocate. Meanwhile, there are conflict resolution methods, you know, arbitration, conciliation, and mediation. Those are available for conflict resolution. They are there because they are a cheaper method. But the first one is between the two parties. If you don't agree, then you say, okay, let's go to an arbitrator. An arbitrator will cost you like, say, 5,000 bucks. They are not as expensive as lawyers. But suppliers are quick to go to the law, guys. And I've experienced this and I have used it to my own advantage. That's why I'm saying to you, go put it in your contracts. Your bosses are going to thank you. And then when they thank you, you come and thank me later. Suppliers, I'm only joking. You don't have to thank me. I'm paid for teaching you this. All right. High performance teams that feel empowered to get the job done. All right. Now, this is how trust is built. Suppliers welcomes opportunities to innovate. Both parties share ideas and insight. Clear criteria for decision making. It helps you to build trust. Finally, there are many reasons why relationships break. Okay? When a buyer has a BATNA, this may not be an issue. And remember, when you are negotiating, not every negotiation will result into a finalized agreement. Some of them will break in the middle. But you must have a BATNA, a best alternative to negotiate agreement. The vicious cycle of blame causes relationships to break. Procurement will find evidence where the supplier blames the customer and the other way around. Procurement must use their conflict management skills to resolve this. First, establish the fact that led to the situation of relationship breakdown. Then, separate people from issues. Remember the principal types of negotiation. Separate people from issues. Put in place agreed changes, structures and programs agreed to restart the relationship. Guys, I have come to the end. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, you must do so, because I load some of my lectures on the AMILAC YouTube. It is easy for you, buy data and put it in the car and listen to the lecture when you are driving to work. If you are when you are driving to the shops, don't listen to this hip hop music. Go to YouTube, put it on your hands-free kit, your radio, and listen to these lectures and go over them and over so that they stick in your mind, guys. I need all of you to go through to the advanced diploma next year, okay?